Hello everyone, welcome to the first episode of our podcast, the 7,000 Steps Unfiltered Coffee Podcast. I am Bipul and joining me today is my co-host Kevin.
Thanks for having me, Bipul. So I'm excited that we're going to dive into the rich world of coffee cultivation in Meghalaya.
Let's start with the brief history of coffee. Kevin, can you please provide some background on how coffee cultivation began in Meghalaya and its importance in the region?
Sure. Certainly, Bipul. If you look at it, coffee cultivation in Meghalaya started only recently, very recently. It doesn't have a very long history. So I would say in the late 1960s to early 1970s, coffee cultivation was introduced by the government as a cash crop. And so small-scale farmers actually took up the cultivation of coffee in Meghalaya. And at that time, Meghalaya was still part of Assam. And when coffee was introduced, the climatic conditions, the elevation, soil conditions of Meghalaya were ideal to cultivate and produce high-quality Arabica coffees. So that's just a brief that I would.
That's really fascinating because there's another story I heard where the coffee actually brought in Meghalaya by Coffee Board and Soil Department.
Yes.
So any thought on that?
Yes. Actually, there are two stories to it. And interestingly, so yes, one part is where the soil conservation and including the Coffee Board introduced coffee cultivation in Meghalaya, like the other northeastern states as well. So that's one part. The second story is where the colonial British administrators and missionaries actually brought coffee into the Northeast, and this was many years ago. So I'm not sure which side of the story is true, but we know that coffee was brought into the Northeast. One thing was to introduce conservation of soil because the local farmers were relying too much on June cultivation. So that was one, and also to have the opportunities of local farmers to increase or have a better revenue stream.
So you mentioned climatic condition in Meghalaya is very suitable for coffee. So can you please elaborate that point?
Yes. So for coffee cultivation, Meghalaya has a very cool. They're cool temperatures. That's one thing. High humidity. We have abundant rainfall. So these are all ideal conditions for coffee cultivation, and the soil, in fact, is highly acidic, which helps. I would say imparts unique flavors in the coffee. When it's roasted. So these are a few conditions that are really ideal for coffee cultivation in Meghalaya. So it's a combination of many factors, just not one condition, or I would say a factor that is ideal for coffee cultivation.
What about the different varieties of coffee that is grown in Meghalaya right now?
So now if we go back to the stories about, say, the missionaries and the British administrators introducing coffee, there was a coffee cultivar known as Kent's. So it seems that was the first coffee cultivar or variety that was introduced. Then we also have selection 795. Then we have newer varieties of coffee, like the Kaveri and the Chandari varieties, also selection 9s that's been introduced. So these are just a few of the varieties that were introduced, again based on the climatic conditions, and it has evolved. So these varieties have been evolved by the Coffee Board. So, for example, if we talk about the Kent's variety, it has more chocolate, caramelly kind of flavors. That's how it imparts the flavors in the coffee. Then we have the newer versions of coffee, whether it's Selection 795, and Selection 9 or later. They are more spicy kind of flavors that they impart, and they're more fruity also. So these are the different characteristics and how the flavors and aromas the coffees evolved for these varieties.
So these are mostly Arabica variety or it's Robustas?
We have both varieties grown in Meghalaya, Arabicas and Robustas. Robustas are grown more in the warmer areas of Meghalaya bordering Bangladesh, or even in Ripoy district, which is much lower in elevation and more warmer. Definitely the soil conditions are different there. So we do have some Robustas as well growing.
Okay, Kevin. So that was very interesting, like to see like different flavors coming out from the our region actually. So I've been to multiple villages in Meghalaya and seen like how they follow traditional farming. So if you can elaborate the processes and which they take in farming.
Yeah, so see, we're here in the Northeast, including Meghalaya, farmers, small scale farmers, and they always employ, till date, employ traditional farming methods. So, what I mean by traditional farming methods, basically, they first of all, is the use of machinery is very, very minimal because of the terrain. Second is they don't use any chemicals in terms of fertilizers or pesticides, so it's organically grown. And even the processing, so after it's harvested, it is sun dried, and the hand pulping is also done at the farm level. But mostly it's sun dried, so we get the naturals, which is the dried cherry, and it and because of these practices, because of these soil conditions, the climatic microclimatic conditions that we have, the elevation, it all has a hand in imparting these unique flavors to the coffee that we produce here in Meghalaya.
So most of the growers actually here they follow traditional farming method. So definitely because Meghalaya is already like a place like one of the wettest place on earth, like, and it's very difficult to sun dry and all. So they might also face some other challenges too. So would you like to share like what are the other challenges farmer face, especially growing coffee?
You're right, Bipul. Actually, our farmers in this region have experienced or are still also experiencing challenges. First and foremost is climate change. And this is a significant concern because you have erratic rainfall. Sometimes the temperatures are too high or too low. And this directly affects, the yield or the crop yield, and which again directly affects the farmers. They're not able to produce as much. Number one, probably in terms of say the keeping up with the quality of the soil, of the rainfall that goes into the coffee. Because with these changes and challenges, the farmers and now another thing is we have also rains during the winter times or during the drying season, and farmers are unable to dry the coffee optimally, and it goes into creating mold, coffee probably gets spoiled. So these are few of the concerns or challenges that farmers have to deal with, on year-to-year basis. And another big challenge the farmers face is actually access to markets. Where do they sell this produce, that they're producing?
Yeah, that's exactly, Kevin, like one of the biggest challenges the farmers are facing, like to get access to the market. And that's where I guess 7,000 steps comes in, like because most of the villages in Meghalaya, they are in the remote region, and then we have to actually track down to get those coffee, right?
But that's going to be a topic for our next podcast, Bipul.
Okay, thank you, Kevin, for reminding and bringing us on track. So now for our listeners who are coffee enthusiasts, what would you recommend, like how they should experience the coffee of Meghalaya?
To experience it truly, I would suggest coming down to Meghalaya, to the Northeast, trekking, going to these remote villages, experiencing the lives that they have, looking at how coffee is cultivated here in Meghalaya, even probably roasting with us. But I know it's a long shot, getting that. The other option I would say is go to our website, be at 7,000 Steps Coffee, have roasted some amazing coffee from Meghalaya, and you can easily get it through our website.
So, Kevin, I guess we have covered a lot today. So, why don't you provide the recap, a brief recap of what we have discussed in this podcast?
Sure, Vipul. Yeah, we have covered a lot today. So to give a brief recap, the first thing that we covered was we explored the history of cultivation of coffee in Meghalaya. We talked about the importance of coffee cultivation in the region and how it was introduced, why it was introduced. We also discussed the unique climatic conditions, soil conditions, elevation, rainfall, and how it imparts flavors and aromas to the coffee. Then we also we also talked about the different varieties of coffee that's grown here in Meghalaya. We talked about the challenges farmers and growers face in coffee cultivation. And we definitely, last but not least, recommended coffee enthusiasts how to get access to coffee from Meghalaya.
Thank you all for tuning to our first episode. Stay tuned for more insightful conversation about coffee and its journey from farm to cup.